Yeah. I think it's on, so let me know, please. Yes. And again, thank y'all so much for letting me come and putting up with me, and you still let me come. And that's huge. And I will use this some, and I tend to move to it, and I talk loud also. But bear with me. What the title of my story, my talk today, is When Hard Things Happen, Miracles Happen. And please, in the back, if you do not hear me and I am talking loudly, still raise your hand, okay? And you can use whatever finger you wish. I'm just saying, raise my hand. It will get my attention. I'll speak a little louder to you. But I will try to use the phone, this too, so we'll find out. But when miracles happen, it's amazing. And each one of you in here is meant to be here today. And those of y'all that are hearing, you're meant to listen. And they can listen tomorrow, other countries, different times. It's 5 o'clock somewhere all the time. You can always listen on Facebook too. But my point being, thank y'all again. The Civic Society in Clifton has been around over 100 years. Not you individually. I don't think. Maybe one of us will make it over 100 one of these years. But they have always impacted this town. And so thank y'all for including me in some of your talks. Before, I've talked about the memoirs I'm writing, which are stories of my own life. And I'm still slow and I'm still writing. But the first one I talked to y'all about was what I'm still renaming, but it's Losing Socrates' Heart. It's about the World War I letters to my grandmother. The second one was last year, Walk Alone with Me. It's about when I walked with God doing the El Camino de Santiago. And the third one, that I'm still writing, all of these, the third one I'm writing with Curtis. We're going to write one together. And for now, the name of it is Que Sera, Sera. You laugh. I love it. How many of y'all remember that song? Ooh, if I could sing, I would make you sing with me. But I can't, and it would make it sound really warped. But you remember what it means? What does Que Sera, Sera mean?
Whatever will be, will be.
Well said, all of you. Whatever will be, will be. Okay? I'll get back to that. But that, I think, will be the name of the next one. It's about a traumatic brain injury that I caused for myself, and the miracles that happened from the second, even before the second I decided to jump throughout. And I'll try to make it shorter this time, because I do have a tendency to really talk a lot. It's been 5 years ago, just last month, when this happened. So time does fly. Most of you in here are at least my age. And the older we get, the faster time flies, but it still does fly. And looking back 5 years ago, it was in January, and Curtis had invited me to come with him and meet his cousin out there, and 2 of the Baylor students of his, boys. We all met out there in West Texas, Big Bend. I love all out in the desert in Big Bend. And they're photographers, all of 4 of those. And I like photography, but I'm not that great. And I'm not that great for much. But I was going to be writing anyway, so I just went with them and walked around. Well, I was down at the bottom of this little cavern at a certain place Curtis had thought about a couple of years ago. So he had his young guys, 20s, college-age kids. He told them, if you want to jump across here, but don't if you don't want to. And they're like, oh, no big deal. So if you jump from me to you about, then he was going to be down at the bottom. He went down to the bottom of the cavern, and he took cool pictures of them, jumping through, because you see these giant rocks, and they're jumping across. And so I'm just down there with him. His cousin comes. There's not enough room down there. So I go up to the top. I'm just watching the guys. And you have to walk around kind of a long ways to come back to jump again. So it's not like, boom, 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 we're done. It took a little bit of time. But by the time Curtis tells the boys, well, you're done. I've got what I want. He had his good picture. It doesn't take him long to do that. He's so good. Well, by then, I'm like, well, dadgum, I was raised with my big brother, and if he can do it, I want to try. Am I good? No, but I try. And so I thought, it's like, I'm going to do it. I've been watching. So I just took off my jacket, and I'm just thinking, I already timed it. It's like, okay, you just jump. Anyway, long story. And Curtis down there at the bottom, he said, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. And how do I respond? That's my response, literally. You know, no, you know. So I jumped, and I still remember this. I'm not telling you about things I don't remember. And so I paced it right, and I jumped, and I landed with my left foot. I think it's the left, could have been the right. I landed with one foot, and I just kind of froze. My body's momentum was not quite enough. And there's nothing really to grab onto. And at that second, as I froze, split second, in my mind, thankfully, I don't have to curse or anything like that this time. It's just like, oh, crud. Because in my mind, I knew I would fall. And I do not remember falling. Somewhere as I fell down, it was about, we were estimating 22 feet high, something like that. Falling into this little cavern, and at some point, I hit my head, hit it on this side on a rock, and just kept falling. The miracles happened in every way. First, that I can even remember. Second, I don't remember landing. But once I landed, it's like playing tomboy, or playing with guys, playing with anybody, do it myself. You know, you hit yourself, get hit hard, then you just lose your breath. It doesn't even hardly hurt, it just, you know, that kind of thing. And so I remember as soon as I came to, I was unconscious briefly. As soon as I came to, I was laying at the bottom, just kind of weirdly. And I heard Curtis talking to me. He's like, hey, you okay? Okay, you know, if you can't talk, it's okay. Just use one finger yes, two fingers no, or the other way around. And I couldn't say anything, so I answered yes, you know. And so he kept talking. He said, it's all right. And so we're just going to check and make sure you don't have any broken bones, anything like this. One of the first miracles, I'm going to quit counting miracles. I'll just keep saying them as I go, or you'll understand it anyway. Where I landed in this little small cavern, there's rocks, obviously, everywhere. And you know how caverns are, though. They usually start with water at some point. Anyway, in this cavern, there's one little area that has only little pebbles in it. And it's even smaller than the size of my body. And it's one little part. But where did I land? Right on that spot. I didn't break a bone. As he's talking to me, and his cousin is checking me out, and all of that, they eventually rolled me over, because I was kind of on my stomach like that. And as they roll me over, Curtis holds my head. He squats down and has his cousin roll me over. During this time, and I realized shortly there, right then, they were talking about, I said, how do you know to do all this? I never knew that Curtis, we were in love, but we were not married. I never knew he was an EMT. What a miracle. That I had someone with me that knew what in the heck to do and how to check. So he had squatted down and he held my head like that in case there still was a problem that they could not tell. And we ended up waiting for about 2.5 hours till there was an ambulance that was able to come and all that. But during that time, I could start talking pretty quick. And he asked me, you know, you can see okay? You're in much pain? No. You know, I'm gifted with high pain tolerance, plus some arrogance. You know, it kind of hurt, but it's no big deal, you know? And he asked me if I could see okay. And I was like, oh, yeah. You know, I was looking around. And he said, are you sure? So then I looked better. And it was like seeing double vision, kind of. I'd never seen in my life. And I said, oh, well, it's different. Well, one eye was kind of going this way. It had swollen up so much. He knew I could not see right, but I wasn't sure myself. One of the quick miracles, once they rolled me over, his cousin, Jody, went kind of halfway running up because he wanted to go to the boys. The boys, thankfully, were not there and did not see me fall. So they did not have the emotional difficulty that both Curtis and Jody had. as someone that causes or not causes, most people do not cause their own problems. It just happens to them. But the caregivers in people's lives are the ones that have more pain than the people who are experiencing what we call pain. And so that's why I want this second memoir, to be including Curtis. I want his stories at the same as my stories, because he deserves it. I made the dorky decision. I don't have regrets. I'm always making dorky decisions. But God blessed us through all of it so much. So anyway, Jody goes up and he starts trying. He told us that in a couple of months. He said he just fell on his knees as soon as he got up there and just started praying for me because he thought I was going to die. And then he got up and he went over, and one of the boys was on his cell phone. And every one of the, we'll get to Asia in a little bit. One of the park ranger guys, everybody asked, how did you get service? There was zero service there. Even when we went back and changed it, it's not like, oh, you get one bar, or you get no service, ever. Another miracle. The kid, as soon as he uses his phone, he calls him, tells him where we are. Oh, by the way, what do you think the name of that little cavern is? Tough. T-U-F-F. Cavern, looking in the big bin. How appropriate. God loves to laugh at us. He laughs with us, but sometimes he has to literally hit me upside the head. But it's tough, can't you? So anyway, so he's calling in, and so it does take them a while to get an ambulance to get out there. But I was talking. They thought I'd be fine, so they weren't flying someone in and all that kind of stuff. As the Rangers started coming down, one of them, in fact, I think it was the first guy that came, and he's coming down, and there's another guy or two, several. We ended up having, I think, 13 or 14 of them, you know. When I'm in pain, when I'm sick, even my mom knows this more than anybody, just leave me alone. You know, I don't want attention. I don't want help. Just leave me alone. So then I'm just thinking embarrassed, you know. Yes, oh, run. Oh, and I told Curtis even, no, I'll walk out. He said, it's going to be okay. I said, no. I said, I'll walk out. He said, no, you're not. But again, as the first one came and the guys, he had blood on his face. Well, I didn't know I had blood all over my face. And Curtis was saying, hey, are you okay? He said, oh, yeah. He said, no, stop. He's telling this to the other guy, not to me this time. He said, stop. He said, you got blood on you. I don't want your blood mixing with her blood. Which again is smart. And he had just coming down, he had, you know how the appetitus, is that the right word? One of those, he got stabbed in the face by some of the stickers out there. And so everybody's just laughing at him, along with laughing at me. So humor, again, God gives us humor. If we just enjoy it, it makes our lives a whole lot better instead of just pouting. Anyway, so the miracles again, and that guy was fine, and all the people ended up coming, and by then they put me on they just passed me along. You know, it's kind of like those old shows, older for us, some of y'all, not to say you're old, but you are older, you know? It's like people that say, oh, don't call me old. Damn, I'm proud to be old. The older we get, the more we know, and the more we know, that includes the people we know. It includes the people we love. It includes the places we've been, the feelings we've had. So to me, being older, I'm proud of being older. So I'm not insulting you. Please don't take it the wrong way. But dadgum, you know, that's a good thing in life. So going on anyway, they took me on up there, but as they did, they just kind of patted me, passed me along. What I was saying is, you know when there used to be fires, and they just get a bucket and pass it? I was like the bucket of water. I was a bucket of blood, and they're just kind of passing me along. And so anyway, they're so sweet. So I remember getting on the ambulance, or they put me on, and I was still conscious. And we had a running joke with Jody, his cousin, who makes bacon. Every time you camp with Jody, he has so many bacon. He dries bacon. It's kind of like how we do our meat. You know how you have jerky? He has bacon jerky almost, and it's awesome. So we even took bacon on the ambulance, and it started becoming a joke in the ambulance. But it's just those things. And then I remember at one point, because in the ambulance it's so rocky and all of that stuff, I did get nauseous. And to me, I'd rather have physical pain than be nauseous. But I do remember thinking, oh, crud, and I did throw up and stuff, and then I did pass out. So that was the last of my memory then. They did take me in the ambulance to the hospital in Alpine. And that's awesome that there is a hospital there. The doctor that was there that night, it happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I got there early evening. But the doctor there was awesome. So they were just, cleaning me up, treating me as they could, checking to see how it was, but they could tell at some point if I'm already knocked out, there's probably going to be a little more to it than they want to handle. So he had called, they were starting to get some people coming in to fly in and fly me to a bigger hospital. And again, one of the miracles, the first one that was flying in was from El Paso. And it was flying in and had to go back. Because it's January, just like today. What's the weather in Texas? When we were there, they were already out of electricity beforehand, and Curtis's sweet cousin, Amy, she's married to the guy that owns the whole retreat thing I can't even say it. And Lajitas, the Lajitas place. So they said, oh, stay in our house. There was no electricity, but we're still staying in this ranch, brilliant place with beautiful little camp lights. It's like beautiful. So the weather comes and goes out there. They were still working on electricity there, but they had it at the hospital. Anyway, that flight goes back. The second flight was coming from north-ish, so I don't think it was Midland, but somewhere else. That flight started coming in, and it had to turn around and go back. The third flight was coming in. Curtis said, I am not leaving the hospital until I know she's on flight. Because otherwise you end up leaving and there's no service and you won't know and you'll drive the whole wrong way. Another thing Curtis did was call my brother first that night. A minor miracle, but big to me, is that Craig didn't answer his phone, which is normal. But then Curtis called Melissa, my older daughter. And to let them know first meant a lot to them. And so he told them, Mom's had a major problem, injury, explained. And so Andrea flew from Dallas to Austin, where Melissa lived. They drove together then from Austin to wherever I was going to be. So Curtis said, don't leave until I tell you. He calls him back as the third flight comes in, and it actually makes it in. And it makes it in because it took me to San Antonio. And San Antonio is the perfect place for that. It has the UT medical everything. The hospital there is for people that deal with brains and a lot of these issues. So as soon as he knew that, he told them, they started driving, flying and driving. He drove all the way that night, and you know how it is when he drove fast but wisely. He didn't hit deer and all those kinds of things. And early that next morning, as he's still driving, he's wise enough to pull over. He says, I know I need to take a quick nap. So he can do like Mom, take a 10-minute nap and feel like, okay, let's go. I'm not able to do that. But he pulled over, did that, and then started going again as the sun's rising. At that point, he really kicked it into gear. He was going like 110. He saw 2 different cops, and they had their meters on him, and all they did was wave him on. He had his blinkers going, but that's it. And they just trusted. Their faith helped us, their trust. So he goes all the way, and when they had flown me in, my body, I don't know the timeline, whenever they got my body to the hospital was within several minutes or whatever, I don't know. Curtis is walking in, because he'd gotten there. Melissa and Andrea walk in. It was all at the same time within 1 or 2 minutes. My girls did not have to be there without an older man there. He didn't have to be there without family of mine there. So again, miracles happen. They cleaned me up. Things were going all right. This was early the next morning. Remember, it happened at 3 the day before. So, all this stuff is about, I don't know, 7, 8, whatever time. And everything's going along, and the girls are adjusting, you know, to the hospital. They're all right there together, and the doctor's great. And he comes in and says, I'll be talking too long. I forgot to set my timer. Dadgummit. Anyway, he says, we need to do surgery now. And what was happening is I was hit on this side, but some of you are nurses and you know a lot more than I do about all this. It started swelling up in the brain, and because it was swelling up so much, if they didn't do surgery, I would die. Well, my girls, I had already signed all my affidavits, all those kinds of things, years before, probably 10 years before, if not more, that don't keep me in a coma. You know, I've never been afraid to die. I've been blessed to having faith in God from when I can almost remember, all my life. And so my fear was more, I don't want my girls to be responsible to take care of me in a hospital. And also, I didn't want to be in a coma and come out after a year and not remember a year, or just be different. It was like, just let me go. So I'd signed all those sheets and everything. And then my girls and I had a running joke, because, you know, my warped sense of humor, they know it. Well, give me 24 hours, I might come back. You know, don't just kill me immediately, but, you know, let me go quick. Well, it's kind of funny, because within about 24 hours is when this doctor came in and said, we have to do surgery. And Curtis already knew about my agreement too, and they were looking at him, and he is having to say, oh crud, you know, well, doc, you know, they have some agreements already made up and signed. And the doctor said, no, do it now. You know, they can deal with this later. So they did allow him to do the surgery. When he did that, the palm of my hand, almost exactly the size of the skull that they cut off. And they literally cut off that whole chunk, and then they freeze it. I think that's amazing. Anyway, so they froze it. And so that allowed it to just grow and grow as much as it wanted, and they did all this other stuff. Also, during that time, Curtis, after they had knocked me out too, Curtis, they had cut, you know, this side of my hair off. My hair was about this long, and I had dyed it for 20 years, I don't even know, just to kind of be my normal color. But then I wanted it, but I didn't have to wait. And I was just always too lazy to make it wait and grow out, because I just didn't care, but blah, blah. And so he said, well, can you go ahead and cut the rest of the hair? And the nurse was like, oh, would you let us? Like, yes, please, because this funky hair, yeah. So they shaved it all off. And a couple days later, he told me it had been shaved off. And I just, you know, looked at him and said, I think you look kind of sexy. And I said, and I will never dye this again. And whatever it is, I'm happy with it. So anyway, during the time of the after the time of the surgery, which went well, and the time that I woke up, and I don't know the timeline on that, I had 3 visions, and I call them visions. I guess people call them whatever you want to call them. Dreams. To me, they're visions because they're miraculous visions. They're miracles. The first one, random. These are short, so don't. Anyway, the first one, I'm almost looking at myself. It's not one of those cool ones, you know, where people look down at their body, you know, and all that. I was kind of looking sideways. And I'm in a gurney, and there's 2 or 3 girl nurses, and there's 1 guy nurse, and he's a gay guy nurse. And I have so many gay friends, it's like, oh, you know, that's what he's supposed to be doing. And they were all laughing and having a good time, and they're all just cleaning me up, you know, and doing all this. And they're laughing because there's supposed to be some movie that's being made in that hospital, and they're cleaning me up. I'm going to be a token gurney girl, you know. And they're going to push me. And one of them was saying, well, yeah, got to make sure the head's really clean or something. They're just laughing. And I just am laughing, oh, that's cool, you know. But I knew I had a head surgery of some kind, you know. I don't care what you do with me. You know how it is, most of you that have had children, and even of those that haven't and have matured, I don't care what people say, you know. I am what I am, and doctors, everybody else, whatever. So that was the first one. I just thought, okay. And then again, timeline, I don't know. The second one, though, was I've been to Africa enough. I have what is like my family in Africa. A friend who started her own mission there, hey Bushby, if she's watching, but they are like my family there. And in my vision, though, I just saw a man, an old man, and he is dressed up, and it's not American Indian. It was African. He was a shaman. And he was dressed in that way, and he was chanting around the fire. And I just saw that, and I thought, oh, they're praying for me. Because he was, whoever it was, or even there's a vision. I knew people were, all around the world. It's God's world, and people pray everywhere to our God, and in many ways. And that was so sweet. It just touched my heart. It's like, oh. And then the third vision was, just in my mind, I would say 20 feet, which I'm not great at this. It's not the wall back there. I would say about where you are. I just see in my mind, I see God. Now, it's hard to define what that means. It's God's face, maybe. Kind of a body, but it wasn't Jesus. It wasn't the Holy Spirit. It was God, all three. It was just God. And this beautiful, smiling face, just joy exuding. And we're outside somehow, you just know you're outside or beyond. And I just see him, and in my mind, I'm like standing like this, and I'm smiling. And I'm coming home. That's what I told him. I'm coming home. And I was going to walk to him. But it was like I couldn't move. And I didn't look down. I just couldn't move. I said, oh, I want to say thank you. Before I go, I want to say thank you. So I told him thank you first for my two girls, Melissa and Andrea separately. But they're adult. They know God. It's not, if they were 2 years old or 3 years old, it would be different. But they don't need me anymore. And I said thank you for them. And I said thank you for Mom. And I said thank you for Dad. Even though Dad was in dementia, it was still Dad. Just thank you for my parents. Thank you for Craig, my brother. And I said thank you for Curtis. Because the first man that I really was deeply in love with, that I knew would do anything for me. And then I was going to walk to him. And I still couldn't walk. I was like, oh. So what I told God, oh, if this is heaven, I'll say thank you forever. Because in my mind, I mean that still. You think about every breath you've ever taken in your life, the things you've smelled, the things you've tasted, the things you've touched. I don't care if they're animals or people. I don't care if it's plants. The things, everything in our lives that has touched every sense that we have has helped us become who we are. And there's joy in all of that. And I would be grateful for that. But when I told him that, he's still smiling. And smiling, he says to me, it's not your time. And my face dropped. I didn't cry. I cried now a lot. But back then, I didn't even cry. It was just like shell shock, like sadness or disappointment almost. But reality too is like, okay, like a kid again. And so I said, okay, teach me what you want to teach me still. If we're still on earth, there's still things we need to learn. Teach me what you need to teach me and help me become who you want me to be. And then I don't remember more after that. So whenever I woke up, about the next day, probably another 24 hours or so, I was in a room at that point, no windows, no nothing, so you're timeless. I could not talk at the very beginning at all. And I remember a lot. There was a doctor coming in bringing, 5 of his kids, students, whatever. And, he would go through, wiggle your toes, and I'd wiggle the best I could. And they had to be tied up, which always would irritate me, and it kind of did me then too, but I understand why. There's always reasons, and I'm always weird anyway, so they had me tied up and all those things, and I couldn't move. But, and he was telling me to do stuff, and he asked me to say something, and I tried, and he said, that's aphasia, and he's telling the kids that. Well, my girls were always in the room in the daytime, and Curtis was always there 24/7. And the girls, though, could tell that my mind was in there, because when you look somebody in the eyes, if you've seen people both ways, you know there's a difference. And they knew at least I was in there. And I couldn't talk. And they were saying, she understands you. And he's like, oh, well, maybe, but maybe not. And maybe she just can't, aphasia's complicated. Well, he came back again and did it again. And this time they were mad at him. She does get you, But he rightfully doesn't know me. And he's just still trying to teach. And Curtis, even at that point, gets up. Because during the time, between the times that he came with those kids, I don't remember if it was Curtis who remembered, or I think it was Curtis. When they did me in Alpine, and one of the nurses there was a newer nurse, and I was already out of it, so it doesn't matter to me. But she was trying to intubate, is that the right word? Intubate, thank you. See, trying to intubate me, and she got hung up underneath my tongue, and so it had just swollen up. My tongue was so bad. It had just really, made it high swollen. So then Curtis comes and says, no, it's because of this. And the doctor's like, oh, But it's funny. Anyway, I laugh over it. When I did start talking, though, I thought I answered what the girls asked me. They would ask, and I would say, they would say, are you okay? Or no, they wouldn't ask that because they knew me better. But whatever they asked, I answered. And they just kind of looked at me weird, and they would ask me again. And I would answer again, because I'm answering, but it's not coming out right. And so it was gibberish but I didn't hear gibberish. I heard what was in my mind. I still feel for my daughter in the sense that daughters, both of them, that they had to go through that pain, that difficult stuff. But they did. And within a couple of days, I was starting to talk more normally. Long story short, I'm talking too much. But through all of this, as I talked normal, the things that I missed, that I could not do, I didn't pray for healing. I know many of you that know me. In fact, I would almost say everyone that knows me have been praying for me. And I appreciate it deeply. But what God taught me about each one of you, even anybody that hears this and has said a single prayer for me, God wants you to know He is telling you thank you. And it is not necessarily thank you for the prayer that you made, for letting me walk again, talk again, see again, use my right arm again, read again, all these things I could not do. He's telling you thank you for talking to Him. That's what He wants. It's just people to talk to Him. The interesting stuff, I can't even read one of them, I'm crying, it doesn't matter. So all these things I lost, but I didn't ask to be healed, because everything that God took from me, I didn't know if it was permanently or temporarily, but I asked Him to teach me what He wants me to learn. And now, when I used to teach English, I told the kids, if you can't spell, it doesn't mean you're dumb. Brilliant people cannot spell a lot of times. Some people have a gift. If you have a gift to spell easily, it means you have a good brain. But if you don't, never take that the wrong way. Well, now I can't. I still laugh at myself. I can't spell. Now, again, I'm living part of that life. Not reading. I don't remember not reading. My mom taught me before I ever went to school. I don't have a memory of life without reading. Most of y'all may not either. I couldn't read. They treat me like a kid. I learned to laugh at most of it. Laugh in a good way. It's like, wow. When they were teaching me to read again, these little flashcards like they do for kids, And you get the first one, it's the A. Oh, it's an apple. And I could say apple, because you see the capital A, the little A, and apple. And the next one they go to is B. And I'm going, I know what that thing is, but I couldn't say it. The mind works in its own mysterious ways, and it's healing. And the doctors we have and the way that things are changing is amazing. I stayed in the hospital in San Antonio, they said originally for, probably 2 months or so, maybe 2 weeks. I started healing so quickly in many ways for them, the physical part, not the brain part, but that too, they worked on. But they just started taking things out of me, right and left, and it was going quickly. So after 2 weeks, they sent me for 1 week up here to Waco. It was more like where they're trying to help heal me to get out in a higher level. When we came up to Waco, I took an ambulance, and I remember being in the ambulance, and occasionally I would ask him to kind of sit me up, and so he would kind of crank me up. And it was so cool because I saw Craig, my brother, driving in his truck behind the ambulance, and I could see him, but I don't remember him really seeing me. It was just like, oh. But the main thing too is I could see him, and I could see the sun outside. I hadn't seen outside for 3 weeks. But that's another cool thing I learned. None of us here, unless you've had an experience not like mine necessarily at all, unless you've been in a hospital, unless you've been somewhere where you have no conscious knowledge of night and day, our time we base on clocks. It's time to eat, it's time to sleep, it's time to quit talking pretty quick. Anyway, all these kinds of time things. But there, I was timeless. I didn't know that I'd been in there 2 weeks. I didn't know if it was 2 months. I wouldn't have known. Miracles are cool in many ways. When we got to Waco, though, and Andrea went to the house to get me some semi-real clothes to actually wear, which was exciting, and Melissa was just emptying out in my little room there, had my own little room kind of thing, and the girls had bought me little sunflowers. And to me, I love sunflowers because, it's so meaningless with God's sun and the sunflowers. And how the sunflowers, they change with the sun and all that kind of cool stuff. So they got me that. And so many people have been so kind to send cards, but we just didn't have anything at that point still. And so the only card they brought me was a card I got the very first day that I remember coming out of my sleeping. That day, the Kennedys, and Kara's husband, Will. We went to their wedding years ago, and Will is now a pastor. And he's a pastor in San Antonio. And so he had found out that I was there, and he had written me the really sweetest card. And on the front of it, it was just a picture. It was an outside picture. It was a landscape, beautiful picture. And inside, he'd written a really long, nice card. And he'd come by the hospital and had said a prayer for me with Andrea and Melissa. And so they had brought it in at that time and read it to me. And so when she was putting that up in my little thing with the flowers they brought, I asked her to read it again. So she did, because I still couldn't read or anything. And when she put it up there, it made me remember Will hadn't come by again, because he's busy. He's a pastor. But a guy had come by, and soon, after I heard about that even, and in my hospital room, the girls were always on the left side, both of them, in the daytime, and hers on the right. And then at night, the girls would go to the hotel, and Craig would sleep in the daytime, and Craig would come at night and sit there. So Curtis could sort of try to sleep at night and stuff. So that's the way it was. And so anytime I would wake up and either say something or they could just tell I woke up, they would come up to me immediately. And I'm a very touchy person. If I care about someone, if I love them, if it's somebody kind of creeps me out, then don't touch me. But doctors can have anything. But it was so sweet because it was this guy that came, and he was so nice, and he sat down at the end of my bed. And so I had the girls on the left and the guys on the right most of the time. It all varies. And then the guy at the end. So whenever they would come up, I would see him first, the way that I couldn't turn my head much. And so I would see him down there, and he would just smile. And most of the time, he would even stand up if they didn't get up. If he's smiling and I see him smiling, then if they come up, then he would just kind of get up and leave the room. He wasn't one of those people that wants to just be part of your family, And so he would leave. And if they didn't get up, then he would stand up pretty quick, and he would just step up, and he would just talk to me very nicely. And it wasn't like, you're going to be okay. that would really irritate me. I'd be like, "Dadgum, I'm fine." I mean, God's the one choosing all this. It's not my fear. Anyway, so he would just come up and talk nicely, just so kind. And so when I asked Melissa, when she was putting his card up there, I said, and I couldn't still talk real well, but I asked what was his name, because I wanted her to write down the name of this guy. I assumed he was a pastor there. Sorry. And Melissa said, "Will?" The guy. And it's like, no. I know Will in his name, the guy that was here. She said, "What guy?" And I kept saying, trying to say it the best I could, the guy who sat down there. And she said, "Where?" And I mean, I felt like she was treating me like a child, but I couldn't say it, and she wasn't. She would just kept asking questions. And I finally explained the best I could. She understood what I was saying, and she just shook her head. She said, "Mom, there were no chairs there. There were no people that could sit there. There was a wall. It was an angel." And as soon as she said that, it made total sense. Because the man always wore the same thing. He was just a nice-looking man about my age, gray hair. And he just had on this kind of this color of a jacket that, it was wintertime. It was, the kind that curls up, has a couple of stickers, and he had on khakis. He didn't wear jeans, but he had. And he was just, so I never knew timeline. I didn't think we wore the same thing for 2 weeks, But all my life, I'd always prayed and wished I could see an angel. And I didn't see one for 2 weeks. And that's why he was so kind. And it was just a sweet thing. And then I asked God, I said, "Can I see him again?" He's like, "No." But I told Melissa, I want to tell each one of them, Audrey separately, Craig separately, Curtis, and each one of them, it made sense once they heard it too. Miracles happen all the time. Remember Romans 8:28? "For we who love God, all things work together for us." Does that mean you're not going to be in pain for all you get? No. Does that mean you should whine about it? Kind of. Does it mean you should be honest about it? No, be honest. When my girls were little, I made up a word called "combragger," and we still use it. I don't want to be a combragger. Someone who complains a whole lot, but deep down they're bragging. It can be about kids, like 2-year-old kids and parents. "Oh, they're just such a mess, and I can't control them." They're so cute. It's like, people would buy a new car. "Well, yeah, I have a friend who had to buy a new car." Anyway, just don't be a combragger is what God wants us to be. And a lot of times when we have pain, it's so sincere, and you need to express it, and you need to get help. But complaining about it to everybody all the time means you have no joy in your life, or very little joy. I don't know if y'all read Jesus Always. That's like Jesus Calling, which was my favorite and still is for like 10, 12 years. I'm just going to read this little bit of today's. They all go by the day. This is February 5th. "The joy I give you transcends your circumstances. No matter what is happening in your life, it is possible to be joyful in me." This is when I really learned a lot of this. "I will help you discern whether you need to work to change the situation." If you're in a lot of pain, don't ignore going to the doctor. Don't ignore it too much because it can get worse. There are times you need to work or work it out or keep doing something you don't want to do but it strengthens you. Or simply accept it. Either way, teach yourself to say, "I can still rejoice in you, Jesus." Going on, I'll try to speed up a little bit. As I got on, I was in Waco for a week. got to come home. I came home, I saw my favorite bookshelf of all my favorite books, you know, just a book freak. I see them, I know them, I couldn't read their titles. I was like, wow. And that's another time I heard, not literally, that God told me, you won't read, but you will write. I'm still working on writing. I can read, but I know sometimes we have to lose things that we need to lose. God told me to write years ago. What did I do? I read 16 more books on how to write better. I used to be an English teacher, so I should know how to write, you know? But I spent too much time reading. I love to read, and I wasn't doing some of the work I needed to do. It's a pleasure to lose whatever we lose, because it makes you appreciate the time in your life you have. As we get older, like we talk about, I'm so grateful I don't spend money to have my hair dyed anymore. And I don't have to take time to do it. I didn't want to spend time doing it, but I felt I should, you know. Our bodies are God's temple. If you believe in God, the Holy Spirit's inside of you, alive and well. And we always say that about our bodies being His temple. But we always often complain about our bodies getting old. We are decrepit compared to what we were when we were 16 when we were 30. We are getting older. We don't have the ability. We can't walk as fast maybe as we used to. But you know what? When I did my walk in El Camino, I stopped in every church that I went by and had the door open. And yes, I went to some beautiful, huge, gold-covered cathedrals. But I also walked into one or several that were nobody in there. It was falling apart inside. It was decrepit. But God was in there. God loves His temples. And I love the old decrepit ones, really, almost more than the new fancy ones. And I really think God feels kind of like that with us, with our bodies. The older we get, yes, we're falling apart. We're not the way He made us to begin with, but where are we going? He's letting us get closer to where we're really going. And the whole idea of don't destroy your own view of your own temple. And let God enjoy it. To me, pain is pain. But remember back when the people that, well, not back, some people still do, but had the, what's the word when you don't feel pain and they were the leopards? Sorry. Aphasia now is also a game. It's one of the things I've accepted. I've gotten a lot better. You know, I can read some, like I read that. You know, I read it. And I can write some, even though I can't spell. I can use my phone. But aphasia also, things go on inside your head, but you can't get them out. And some of y'all may have experienced that, or at least people you love have. And that can be frustrating. And it made me mad some. And now I've learned to accept it. And now I laugh about it. I've made it a fun joke. And it's a real one. It's my good friends. I just start saying, okay, it has 3 syllables, it has an M starts with, and I'm meaning this. And that's like what I would have said, just how I will now. What's that thing back in the Bible when they couldn't live? Leopard. It has 3 syllables start with L. I wanted to say that, and I should. But that's the fun part. That's just how God made me. You know, I don't care. It makes me learn to. I need people. I become so independent that I was self-dependent. I loved God, and I trusted God 100%. And I love people all around, but I didn't ever want to need them. Now I realize it's because it's kind of ego. And what God taught me through this too, the first day when we were back in Waco, and Curtis had to go teach, he would have lost it. They threatened nicely, Baylor's Baylor, any school's any school. He missed a whole week, the first week of him teaching classes, and he said, I'm not coming back. And they said, but you maybe lose your job. He said, I'm staying until we come back. And then when we came back, he told me, I have to go teach. I was like, go. You You don't have, it's like you can come stay in your apartment. You don't have to come back to the hospital. And he just looked at me and said, I'm never leaving you. And that's another one of the miracles. I think I had put my walls up so high and so strong that I couldn't really trust someone enough, that I didn't believe someone else besides my family or friends. I didn't think a real man would love me enough to die for me, other than Jesus. And that day, then I thought, thank you, Lord, for this. Now we're married. It's so easy. It's just easy. God just gives us miracles of all kinds. And so faith to me is believing in God. A lot of people don't think about miracles in the same way as other people do. But miracles are things you cannot plan. They are unexpected beauty. Beauty can be defined. I have a question for y'all in here. And you don't have to answer it. Those other questions, thank you for answering. This one though, how many miracles in your mind have you seen yourself? You can start counting your own head or not. It could be one or two. It could be hundreds. It doesn't matter how many you have seen. But if you want to see more, to strengthen your faith in God, because He will show you what He wants you to see. Those are often miracles. Instead of just seeing what you want to see. I wanted to see an angel, and He did give me that huge gift. But the other miracles are equally important. Miracles when I walk and I just see the plants that God made, the beauty of the people in other countries. Strengthen your faith. I told you that Curtis was taking the pictures of the kids. He did take a picture of me as I jumped, and I'll show it to you. But the cooler miracle to me is not the picture he took of me. He can take miraculous pictures of me. He can make me look pretty. But it's as soon as he took that picture and I landed, he just chunked the camera to try to catch me. And he couldn't. But that miracle is his love. And the picture that he took, and I'll pass it around, I just printed it today, but that's me on top. I don't know if that's how you do it or not, but that literally is me as I jumped. And another miracle of that, a lot of y'all know Nancy also, Nancy Boren, artist in many ways. She drew actually 4 drawings of me jumping, and this is one of them. And she drew this for me. I won't pass it around. Nothing personal, you can come see it, but I don't want to mess it up. But she drew this partly because of, y'all know Gary McKibben, the Red Caboose owner of all that winery stuff. He and I are going in as partners again. You know, we went in as partners to do the cell block wine for the cell block, the jail in town. Well, now we're doing another one, and it's going to be called, and this will be the front of the bottle, K Syrah Syrah, and it's K-A-Y-E with Syrah, the wine, twice. It's like miracles happen. What was Jesus' first miracle we're aware of? Wine. Miracles happen all around us. Please strengthen your faith in God and see miracles even today. I know some of you are going to see things today you've never viewed as miracles before. But thank you each for the time and the love. Oh, y'all don't have to stand up. That was so sweet. I don't know how to turn it off.